When men don't know who they are, women are in trouble. Manhood is not defined by the roles that you perform. The key to a man's manhood is his work. Everybody say work. The key to man's manhood is his work. Man's work defines him. Let me say something about work. If a man is not happy with his work, he won't be happy with his home. Work is more important to a man than a woman. If a man isn't working, he's disoriented. He becomes disillusioned. He becomes confused. God gave man work before he gave him woman.
Do y'all go to church regularly?
No. Not regularly, no.
Thank you. Why aren't they there? Because y'all not going to church.
Well, I know why. I know why though. So
yeah.
Why don't you go to church?
It's more of therapy rather than instruction for how to get things accomplished.
Oh.
So it doesn't really resonate with me, to be honest with you.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. We had Nur Muhammad come in. He said it the best. He said, church in the Christian community is more about coping with life rather than conquering life.
Welcome back to the channel. You see the things that are on the screen, so you know what I'm about. So let's get to it. And, every once in a while, I have to talk about the church. Evidently, I put up Christian information on, like I say, on the screen so you all can see that. And I am literally one of the main organizers of Christian Singles Connect, which is, our main branch is here in Atlanta, but we also have a branch in Birmingham and another one in Charlotte. All right. So evidently Christianity is really important to me. Going to church is really important to me. But I'll be honest, as I have said in some of the videos in the past, I do believe that the Christian church has actually they've just kind of made a couple of big mistakes over the last 50 or so years. While I can't speak to the full history of the Christian church, because like I say, I can only go by my experience and things that I've actually studied/read, but there's just a lot of things that are going on. So in the very first video, you saw Dr. Miles Monroe, and a lot of people really kind of really lean towards a lot of his teachings because they truly believe, that not only was he a strong man of God, but that he also really kind of had a good understanding about what was going on, in, the community. The second one was from Hardly Initiated, right? And so with them, again, this is more of a modern day understanding of where the church is. And one of the things that I noticed as I was watching both of these videos is that, and I'm hoping you got it, is that really both sides were kind of saying the same thing. As crazy as it sounds, Miles Monroe in his message that day was actually talking a little bit to what the people over at Hardly Initiated were also saying. See, one of the problems that I actually have with our society as a whole, and I've talked about this in multiple videos, is that as we have gone towards money, right? We made this lean towards money, okay? And people say, well, Jay, how did you go from that to money? Well, like I said, I'll get to it. So when we look at money, we understand that women spend more money than men. All right. Most of us kind of know this. Even I think the average woman understands this. Even when you look at a lot of, the jokes that we have in our society, we kind of lean them in towards women spending more money. Now, it doesn't mean that men will not spend money. It just means that men generally spend money on only the things that they're extremely passionate about. If they came out with a PlayStation tomorrow that costs $1,000, trust me, men will be lining up to buy it. All right. So while they might look at a woman crazy when she has literally, 50 pairs of $200 shoes, even though a lot of men have a lot of J's, just saying, we do understand that for the most part, women spend more money than men. We also see that there is a definite correlation between a man that is on his purpose and a man that spends money. It's almost like, people would say retail therapy. It's almost like when you aren't really on your purpose, then you just try to find other things to fill the void within you. And so you just kind of go spend money. And with this, I'm talking about men. I'm not talking about women. I think and honestly, I think it's in women's nature to actually spend money because women actually like to surround themselves with nice things. And they're, part of the joy, of being with a woman is that she comes into your life and she turns your house into a home. And by doing that, she surrounds you with nice and comfortable things. All right. So let's get back to the point. But one of the things that Miles Monroe, even in that small clip, was trying to do, he was trying to teach men how to go down a path to success. Right. And like the people were talking about, in the second clip, what church has done over time is it's leaned itself to its money. It might have not really meant to do that. It might have not even really paid attention to the fact that it was doing it. But in order not to offend women, a lot of people, and I think a lot of pastors, started to kind of pull away from the hardcore, grinded out, type of messages to softer messages, right? And so what happened over time is, like they said, it went from instructional to inspirational, right? And so men do better with instruction. Solve the man's problem, okay? Don't constantly go back and forth about, oh, how wonderful one day life will be. And if you notice, one of the things that I've always talked about when it comes to the difference between when someone is primarily talking to men versus when someone is primarily talking to women, and this is like in the dating space out here on YouTube, those that generally talk to women are not really trying to instruct women. They're trying to inspire them. They're trying to have them to walk in a place of hope. Therefore, the woman's dreams stay intact and her fantasies stay intact. But when you're dealing with male teachings, they tend to be more instructional. Men are very quick to say, do A, then B, then C, then D. Because men want the answer. We don't want hope. While we want a little bit of it, like I say, to get us through, that's not the core of what we want. And if you've been tracking with me for a while, you know that throughout my videos, no matter what their title is or whatever, I'm always trying to come up with solutions, hardcore solutions in order to help you, right? And honestly, it's to help the men and the women. And a lot of people, might not quite understand always why I do that, but that is basically the core element. And I've had, people and even women to come out to my channel and they always are saying, well, yeah, you primarily talk to men. It's almost always when they come out, they say that, even though a good portion of women follow me, a huge percentage. Like at this point, I'm about 40% women, that follow the channel. Okay. And when you look at it that way, and the fact that I'm always talking to women about 70% of the time, I lead a lot of the conversations saying that I am talking directly to women. It's interesting that even when a lot of women who've watched my channel refer to my channel, they see it as a male-based channel. And it's because I'm leaning into instruction instead of inspiration. And I thought that, Heartily Initiated did a really good job of understanding that. So when we get back to the church has actually moved in the same direction. Instead of a more hands to the ground, let's do this instruction, not only with the men that are available, but let's take this, information to the world around us and actually change lives so that we can stand in the gap, okay, for the future, people. A lot of churches have taken more of a stance of just kind of relaxing, saying that God loves you, that, oh, well, this is over here, and it's more of a TED talk than it is, like I said, a true educational piece. And one of the things that I've always had a problem with, in the church, and I've talked about in a couple of the videos that I've talked to when it comes directly to talking about the church, is that this actually hurts to me. It really hurts the congregation. And then it doesn't help a lot of the men who, again, are really looking for instruction. They're looking for, like I said, how do I go from point A to point B? If I want to get to close to God, how do I do it? If I want to, better my life, how do I do it? If I want to make more money, be more humble, how do I do it? Right? And so there's a lot of high level topics and high level instruction that people give in church instead of the low level instruction. Like one of the things that I used to tell people in CSC, and I've actually said it a few times on this channel, and now I'm thinking about it, this is a really great time for many of you to take notes on this, is that it is very difficult for you to go to God when you ain't spending no time with God, you're not talking to God, you're not moving with God, but then you think all your prayers are going to be answered by God. I mean, what kind of person, period? Like if you came to me and you never talked to me all year, and then now you're coming to me asking me for $5 so that you can buy a hamburger, I would be like, okay, why am I going to give it to you? Now, if, especially if I know you, and that sounds crazy, but it's almost better for a stranger to come to me asking me for $5 than somebody that I know and that I know has ignored me for a long period of time. And then now they're coming to me, because at least with a stranger, I feel like it's charity. But when it is somebody that I know, I feel like you're taking advantage of me. And so one of the things that I used to encourage people in CSC is to first pay your tithe. A lot of people don't like that, okay? Because tithe is a lot of money. That's 10% of your salary, okay? And that is the original salary. So if you make $50,000 a year, that's $5,000. Okay. And a lot of people don't like that. But one of the things that I always tell you, I ain't getting none of that money. Do you see me able to get any of that money? You're going to take that money and give it to a church. I'm not a church, so it ain't coming to me. So if I can amen that, then that lets you know the power of it. All right. Number 2. Okay. Read at least one chapter of your Bible a day. If you've been tracking with me for a while, if you don't know where to start with Proverbs and Matthew. Read one chapter of Proverbs and then read the next chapter of Proverbs. And then when you run out of Proverbs, it's 31 Proverbs. So it'd be about one a day for a month. When you run out of that, go to Matthew. Read one chapter. When you get to the end of Matthew, go back to Proverbs and do it over and over again. Okay, until you have curiosity about moving to the other books of the Bible. But I do believe that there's so much information in those 2 books of the Bible that's really going to help you have a strong foundation, not only for your own life, but if you also are concerned about, relationship issues in marriage. But it's more about the foundations of your life, because I believe that it's more about that than anything else. And then the final thing I encourage you to do, is to, after you read that, that verse, okay, you need to pray. Okay. And you should pray beforehand. I actually got that out of order, but you should actually pray, for a few minutes beforehand. And all you got to do is just open up your heart. If you don't know how to pray, just open up your heart. Okay. To God, just be like, God, I love you. I'm thankful for another day. I'm thankful for everything you put in my life. I'm thankful, that I have a roof over my head. I'm thankful that you keep me safe as I drive back and forth, or if I get on the subway, blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Please cover my family, blah, blah, blah. Continue that on, forgive me of all the things that I have done, oh Lord, and then help me, to get to a better place. And any list of things that you need/want, then you can basically, bring those out in prayer. Okay. And then after that, you can read the Bible. And then after that, I encourage you to listen to at least one gospel song of your choice. There's plenty of them out there now. They got some that are raps. They got some that are R&B. They got some that are alternative. They got some that are rock. There's so many different types now. It's really no excuse. And you can at least listen to one. And while you're listening, don't do anything else but focus on the lyrics of said song. So you can, sing along to yourself. You can, raise your arms if that's what you want to do, or if you just want to close your eyes and then think about all of the lyrics and what those lyrics mean. Okay. Now, if you want to listen to more songs, that's fine. But I don't see a reason why you can't give God that 15 minutes every day, to pray to him, to read a little bit of his word. Okay. And then, to actually, listen to a song that will glorify him. Right. Because at that point, that is like, you calling a friend every morning and just talking to them for 10 minutes. And so now when you need to borrow or get $5 for a hamburger, now that friend respects you and says, oh, well, he calls me all the time, blah, 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 blah. It's only $5. Here's $5. All right. So it just builds up, a real situation. But just like I said that, I can't remember even in my own self when someone was on a stage and they broke it down to that level. They broke it down to the actual instruction, to the 1 + 1 = 2. Instead, a lot of churches, they keep it at the high level. Okay. And then again, they're filling people with hope. But the thing that I would encourage a lot of men to do, because, again, a part of this is about why don't men go to church, is that they have to, understand that. But then I'm going to be honest with you, some of you all have to change the narrative. There's, even with me out here, on the internet, and I've kind of, told you all multiple times in a lot of videos, this really wasn't what I wanted, being out here, like I say, I'm actually a pretty private guy. I do have a background in media, but even when I was in media doing movies, I was the director. I was behind the scenes. I didn't like being in front of the camera. And, that just wasn't my groove. All right. And even when I first started this channel, I was trying to get other people to do it for me. And I was going to feed them information and then let them talk about it. But sometimes, God just has his own plans. And in order for the church to change, we have to get men that are willing to actually stand up. And one of the problems I think actually that's going on in our entire society, and it's unfortunate that, many churches, not all churches, but many churches are more of a reflection of society than they are a reflection of God. And that is, we have to get more men, not only to be a part of the church, but to stand up in the church. And if they don't see churches and they feel a call on them from God, they need to create said church. All right. And then when they get into that place, again, find solutions. Like with me, you guys know how I feel about a lot of different things. I've talked about it before. And I've talked about the fact that, like I say, I actually believe that media is probably 60% of the problem that we have, once you get beyond, single, parent households. So once you get beyond that, I do think media is about 60 to 70% of the problem. Like I said, once you're beyond the first hurdle. And one of the things that I've said in maybe 1 or 2 videos is that if everything continues to go the way, it is on this channel, because I do thank everyone, for following me. And right now I'm starting to head up towards by the time you guys watch this, I'll be a little over 7,000 followers. And even though that's a small amount, I understand that there are people that literally watch every single one of my videos. And I'm very appreciative of those that do that. But I'm also appreciative to those that just watch one video and they never watch another one. But the point that I'm trying to make here is there's power. And I believe that if we take those resources and we put those resources together, like through a Kickstarter or something like that, and this will be something I might do next year, then I believe that we can take that and maybe raise some money and make some new media that represents the average person. Okay, represents not this high and mighty, not the boss woman, not, the super 6-figure guy, but just the average everyday people trying to get married and work it out. Right. Okay, because once you have, like I say, if everybody give $25 or $30, which is not even a lot of money, it's like what you would, spend to buy a movie or go to the movies. Okay, that's enough. If ever, a lot of people put that money together, and then it's possible, to buy a movie before the movie's made. And people have done that multiple times, and through Kickstarter. But see, to me, that's a solution. Okay, or at least a possible solution. And to me, that is where the church has gone wrong. The church needs to lean, in my opinion, more toward solutions. All right. Okay. Not toward, just, oh, well, we're happy to praise God and God is good and, he will bless you and this, that, and the third. Okay. Because even when we know when it comes to blessings, most of the time, God blesses people through people. Right? So if none of God's people are actually being blessed, then how are we going to bless anybody? All right? And when you start to talk about men, remember, men don't like that. Men don't like to be in a situation where, the pastor is saying, hey, we got to do more. We got to do this. We got to do that. And then the people in the audience don't see, concerns being met. They don't really see anything changing. What they see is just a lot of people gathering without movement, if that makes sense. And I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of churches are more concerned about even smaller gatherings than, again, movement. Many times it's better to have 10 people that will come together and then solidly do whatever it is, whether that's build a house, or that is to, plant some trees, or that is to, work with some, foster children. Okay, that's more impactful than 100 people sitting in a room that's a subset of the church talking about, hey, we are a men's fellowship, or we are a women's fellowship, or we are a children's fellowship. Okay, but what are you doing? Are you just gathering together to get to know each other? I mean, what are you really doing? And I think that's the point. So I actually like this one. This is a little bit of a different take from some of my other, videos when it comes to talking about the church. Now, the final thing I will put on this is because I do think the church leans more towards women, as I've already explained, that not only frustrates men, but it doesn't create a place in the church where men can be seen. All right. We've already established many times before that the average woman is hypergamous, all right? That she tends to look ahead and look up. She rarely ever looks down. And when you have a man that's always on the stage, that is always seen in power, that is always seen with money and with all these other types of things, many of the women in the church, and we all know this, kind of lean their energy toward the pastor. And some pastors, I'm not saying all of them, but some pastors don't do a good job of actually highlighting the men in the congregation. Because these pastors have to understand that this is happening. They have to understand that a lot of the single men many times can be struggling because the single women are so focused on the pastor that they're bypassing the man that is literally sitting beside them. And I actually have seen some pastors that have actually called the women in the congregation out on this, saying, what is wrong with you? There's a man right there next to you. You're too focused on me. So I can't say that no pastor has done this. All right. But there are a lot of pastors that don't do this. Again, they give a very high level. Oh, ladies, there's guys in the church. You really need to make sure that you stay after church or pay attention to them and blah, blah, blah. And it's very nice. It's very happy. Instead of woman, look to your right now. Every woman, I want y'all to look to your left and the right. Is there a single man to your left and the right? If there is a single man to your left and the right, ladies, before you leave, I want you to talk to him for 5 minutes. You talk to him. Otherwise, I don't want to hear your complaints about the fact that you can't find no man. See how that's a solution? And see, a lot of churches don't do that. And that, in its essence, is where a lot of men find fault. It's the same thing with, I'll be honest with you, like politicians. A lot of times politicians are in bubbles, okay, where nobody can really get at them. And then we watch things and we're like, why would you do it that way? Why would you do it this way or that way? And I like I said, I've worked for 2 or 3 government companies, like companies that get, money from the government. And I'll be honest, and I've talked about this multiple times to people. When the government buys a product, okay, whether you know this or not, okay, I'm about to enlighten you. When they buy a product, they actually spend more money for it than the average person and or company. So basically what this means is my background, like I said, is photography. Okay, it's media, all media, and photography is part of it. I did wedding photography for a while, right? And my ex-wife did wedding photography, but then she moved towards portrait photography. And one of the presidents was in office, and it came out on the news that they had a photographer to come in to take pictures of, the presidential family, which is fine. That makes sense. We need to, get these pictures for historical information. And what happened was they actually paid this photographer almost $100,000 to take pictures. $100,000. My ex used to do portrait photography, okay, for less than $500. In fact, I used to laugh because when I found this out, I was like, shoot, we would have came to doggone Washington. We would have tag teamed it. We would have gave them pictures for a whole week. Airbrush, upgraded cameras, whatever you want to do for under 10 grand. There's no excuse in the world why portrait photography should be $100,000. That is really inexcusable. And the bottom line is, who pays for it? The taxpayer. And when you start to deal with companies, like I said, I've worked for several of them. Okay, they will take something, okay, like a mouse that they manufacture, and this might be sold to Walmart, for $10, and then Walmart will up it for $15, but this will be sold to the government for $20. And I have always said, if you get rid of lobbyists, okay, and if you get rid of all this, that kind of spending, okay, then what you would see is you could actually satisfy both Democrats and Republicans, because Republicans want the cost to come down. So that would force the cost to come down. But because that's coming down, guess what? The Democrats could actually take more money and spend it on some of the programs that they care about. And so both sides would be happy. Now, I don't want you guys fighting in the comments, about political stuff. And if I see you down there doing that, I'm probably going to delete it. And I generally don't delete, comments, right? But the point I'm trying to make here is that you have solutions, okay? But there are people out there that just want to go down the path that they want without thinking about every single part of it. Anyway, I do believe that as a man or a woman, I just encourage you, from a Christian perspective, get in your word. If you need to, like I said, I'm gonna give you another solution. If you don't like going to your church or you don't have a church, what I would encourage you to do is you can start a male-led Bible study. All right. You can get with the men in your city, in your area, and you guys can come together on Sunday morning, Wednesday afternoon. I don't really care, what it is, but come together and talk about, the word. Talk about what you've read, make a chapter or half of a chapter that everybody's going to read so that you can actually discuss it, and then just come together. You don't need a church to have a Bible study. When we created Christian Singles Connect, it was created without a church, because we found that a lot of churches don't really care about singles. They don't like singles. Okay, which is one of the reasons why, I ain't gonna lie, churches kind of frustrate me sometimes, because again, they look past things because they don't understand things. And then even when they, get an opportunity to join in a thing, then it gets political. So again, but you don't have to, have a church per se if you just ain't going. Now, if you're going, continue to go to your church. But if you need a church or you need fellowship, just get with people and at least have something, that you're doing. And then you guys can just figure out if you want to take up money and then maybe give it to the charity of your choice. I think the key is to show God, that you're trying. All right. I think that's really important. So in that description, there's a lot of information because I'm all about marriage. Okay. So we want to make sure that we're going into marriage, thinking about marriage and making sure that we really built ourselves up for marriage as best as we can. All right. So remember to like, subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.